401k mistakes you can't afford to make in your 50s. I have this conversation a lot. But let's kind of set the stage here a little bit. Let's say your retirement account is a car, right? And your objective is to park that car for the next 20 years, meaning, hey, I've got the vehicle, I'm gonna put it away for a later use for the next 20 years. Now, when you come back to access that vehicle, the fact that the tires might be a little bit flat, okay, not unusual. The fact that the battery might be dead, not unusual. But would you expect to come back to a vehicle that is missing tires, or the engine is gone, or the windows are blown out, or the vehicle is destroyed? Would you expect to come back to that vehicle 20 years from now and have something other than what it was you left? Absolutely not. But that's how that's how majority of us treat our retirement accounts, specifically 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, TSPs, those traditional employer plans. We treat them as this vehicle that we can set it and forget about what's happening to it, not realizing it was never about the 401k. It was never about the vehicle itself. It's about where it was left. It's about whether or not it was protected. Was it under a tarp? Was it under a carport? Was it in a garage? Where was it? Because if it's not fully protected, you might come back and find out the brake lines were eaten by rats, or
the radio is stolen.
Right. The radiator's been stolen. My point is, it's less about the vehicle itself and more about where it's been positioned to be protected. And so what we're going to walk through today is how to make sure your retirement dollars are put in the right position so they can not just work for you, but also be protected from loss. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is people get retirement accounts and assume that just because I have it, just because I'm contributing to it, I'm safe. I have so many conversations, especially with people, I would say in their mid 30s to early 40s. They want to tell me how secure they are with the retirement account they have with the company that they work for. Meaning, hey, I contribute to my 401k, I contribute to my 403b, I'm fine. I'm protected, I'll be enough, assuming that your contribution into that retirement account is enough, when it's not. And again, it's not about the retirement account. There's so many finfluencers out there talking about how traditional retirement accounts are bad. It's not the retirement account itself. It's where the retirement account is located. It's what the retirement account is invested in. 401k specifically are actually trusts. Trusts are one of the most secure vehicles you could possibly have. But if that vehicle is subject to storms, subject to not being protected, what are you actually kind of leaving that 401k in a position to be? And so most people in their 50s don't realize this until it's too late. 67% of 55-year-olds fear they will outlive their retirement account. Why is that? And as it relates to 59% of 65-year-olds, this is the reason why we're seeing so many 70-year-olds driving Uber, 70-year-olds delivering pizzas. It's because it's happening. It's a real thing. So what we're talking about are 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, government 457 plans, IRAs, Roth and traditional, Roth 401ks. There are many different vehicles associated with qualified accounts. Let's say you came into the workforce at this point. You've been contributing the way you're supposed to into your retirement account religiously, doing everything that you were supposed to do. And let's just say, just before you were to retire, the market takes a dip. The market takes a dip just before you're about to retire. What is the impact? What does that do to the time frame that or the dollar amount you thought you had, the vehicle that you were coming back to, the vehicle that you've been putting all of these dollars into? Knowing that at some point you're going to need that vehicle. You've been doing exactly what you're supposed to do, but then all of a sudden the market falls. What happens to that date that you were supposed to now be retiring? It's been impacted. But what is the message you receive? Your money's been placed in this position and you've been following the rules the way it was supposed to. And again, 90% of your portfolio, and this is a traditional perspective for most of us who have money in the market, 90% of your portfolio is tied up in the market. And again, what happens if that crash occurs? And that's why qualified accounts don't necessarily mean protection, meaning it may be a 401k, it may be an IRA, but that doesn't mean it's protected. It just means that it has it's a tax advantage account. Qualified just simply means tax advantage. Qualified just simply means you have the ability to put tax deferred dollars into it, not be taxed on it today, in order to build a nest egg that you can then, once you reach that point of retirement age, to be able to draw from, or pay taxes on that dollar amount, pay taxes on that seed today, and whatever grows from it is growing tax free. It just means tax advantage is all qualified means. And the truth about IRAs and 401ks is people think qualified account or qualified means security, and it doesn't. It just simply means that it's a vessel, it's a vehicle used, and it's a tax advantage container that allows you to be able to generate wealth and income while you have it. And default danger. Most accounts default into mutual funds and stocks and bonds, mainly target date funds with significant market exposure. The risk that most people miss, especially around my age, is the true impact of a market downturn. Because we've been told for so long, hey, the market's down, don't worry, keep buying. The market's on sale. Hey, it's cheap, keep putting your money towards it, not really breaking down the impact of what happens during a true market downturn. So just wanted to highlight the impact of a market downturn. And in most cases, when the market is performing poorly, your response from your financial advisor is simply, hey, that's the reason we diversify. We put a little bit over here and a little bit over here and a little bit over here, such that if the market does take a turn, all of your portfolio isn't impacted. But the moral of the story is it's all in the market. So how much control does your financial advisor have? Very little. These finfluencers out here who swear that traditional retirement planning isn't the move. But what do they say? Hey, the market's on sale. You'll recover. You're young. Don't worry about it. Continue placing dollars towards this vehicle that at some point will recover. And when it recovers, you'll be just fine. But no one ever breaks down the true impact of the word recovery, because it's a time impact. And what is that market risk timeline? And it's interesting to me that again, this age group here, that 30 to 45 age, every finfluence I've run into focuses on, hey, the market being on, during market downturns, the market is on sale, so therefore you have time to recover. Here's what they're saying. Because of your age, you have the ability to take on more risk. But as you transition to these later stages in life, you have to reduce that risk and focus on being a bit more moderate. And then as you're transitioning into retirement age, it's really less about being moderate or less about risk at all. It's more focused on, it's more focused on making sure you get to keep everything that you've made. And so therefore it's about conservative. Meaning making sure that your money is in position to maintain and stay where it is. And this is not a new subject. In most cases, those of us who have retirement dollars 100% in the market, they are sitting in what's called a target date fund. Most people think target date means, hey, I'm putting my money in this vehicle because there's a retirement date that I'm targeting. And that's not it. It's the target date fund is purely based off your age. There's a certain number of mutual funds, stocks, and bonds. There's a certain level of portfolio that your dollars should be sitting in, because this is the time where you can take the majority of the risk, because if something were to happen, you have the time to recover. So the goal is to get rid of this thought process and focus on where can I place my dollars so that I can have more security and growth over them. This example is a client who's 57 years of age. He's got an old 401k. He's got a traditional IRA. He's got a Roth IRA with about $50,000 in it. And his whole purpose and goal is growth without risk. He wants to make sure his money can be placed in a position to where he can't lose what he has, because he's concerned. He's concerned about what this current administration is or isn't doing. And he wants to make sure that these dollars at age 57 with a 10-year time horizon, meaning age 57 to age 67, with a 10-year time horizon, how can he place these dollars in a position to where they're not lost due to market risk? That old 401k, actually for the 401k and the IRA, because they are both traditional dollars, the old 401k of 122,000 and the traditional IRA, the issue is where they currently are is impacted by the market. The goal is to roll them into a fixed indexed annuity. The idea is, where can I place these dollars to be able to put them in a position to where I can eliminate the market risk? We're going to move them into roll them into a fixed indexed annuity, which would allow us to protect against market risk. And then for the Roth IRA, even though it's only $50,000, we have the ability to do the same. Put those into a fixed indexed annuity to allow for the same tax-free growth. And here's the cool part about annuities. Annuities take on the form that the dollars being placed into them are. So if you have an annuity and you're putting into them qualified dollars, then that annuity performs as a qualified account. So if you're putting in tax-deferred dollars, the dollars are growing tax-deferred. And when you go to take income from those vehicles, you're now taking tax-deferred income, which means you are subject to normal income tax. But if you place tax-free dollars in them, if you place Roth dollars into an annuity, then those Roth dollars are growing tax-free, which means when it's time for you to start taking a distribution, you're now able to take tax-free distributions from that vehicle. Well, what does that look like inside of a traditional vehicle? I'll show you what it looks like in an annuity, but let's first, if we were to just simply take this 222,000, again, 122,000 from an old 401k, 100,000 for a traditional IRA, that's a total of 222,000. If we were to take this 222K and just simply allow Vanguard to do what it does, what would it look like if we were to take from age 57 to age 67? We're not contributing any more into this vehicle and allow that $222,000 to simply compound for the next 10 years, and I'm going to put it at 10%. What would that look like? And again, this is not my calculator. This is the Vanguard. What does Vanguard say, or how does that dollar amount perform from Vanguard's perspective? We're talking about a total of $428,000, meaning that $222,000 at 10% return, which is very hard to achieve, by the way. So I'm giving a full benefit of the doubt. We're talking about, on average, somewhere around 428,000. So your 222,000 has become 428. Well, okay, what does that look like if we were to, so 428,000 for the traditional dollar amount. What about for the Roth dollar amount? Age 57 to age 67, putting away $50,000 at a 10% return. What does that look like? So it was 428,000 for the 222, and we're talking, let's call it 97,000, that $50,000 of Roth dollars transitioning to 97,000. So 428,000 in traditional plus an additional 97,000 in Roth. Those are the two dollar amounts coming from, again, leaving these dollars where they are in traditional planning. This is assuming decent market performance because we're talking about 10%, which is highly unlikely. 428 plus an additional 97K. And what is that? 525 is the total amount that you would be looking at from leaving those dollars in a traditional position. What would this look like if you were to transition those same dollars into an annuity? This is a growth annuity. This is an annuity that is solely focused on building the maximum amount of growth possible. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of annuities out there. So which one you choose depends upon what your goals are. What are the goals of this individual? 57 years of age, he has a time horizon of 10 years. He wants the maximum amount of growth during those 10 years. So he understands he's putting this money in a position to grow. He's parking the car for the next 10 years, and he's focused on growth. And the key is where you put it. So we're putting it in a vehicle that, zoom in a little bit here, this $222,000 is gaining a premium bonus of $28,860. What that means is he's putting in $222,000, but this account is starting with $252,000, meaning there is a bonus added to this account. There is a match added to this account. There is the leverage added to this account that allows it to grow, meaning on initial input of the dollars placed into this product, he's now growing at 252,000 versus the 222 that he initially put in. And so what happens in a vehicle like this over the next 10 years? And this performance is simply based on the previous 10 years performance. What I'm saying is this annuity is functioning as the age 57 to 67. How would it perform if we just use the previous 10 years of performance? How would this annuity perform in this case? And if that's the case, by age 67, he would have accumulated a surrender value, a cash value, a leverageable dollar amount that he could use as income of approximately $636,000. So this $222,000 that picked up a bonus of, what was it, 26,000? A bonus of 28,000. Again, if we just look at how the previous 10 years have performed, would produce a total of 636,000 off that one, allowing it to, again, set it and protect it to be able to produce the maximum amount of growth. That's just the original 222,000. What would it look like if we then take the 50,000? Again, that 50,000 in Roth is growing Roth. There's a bonus of 6,500 added to this 50,000, which means the account is starting with 56,956 day one. Again, using the same previous 10 years of performance, how would, from age 57 to 67, this vehicle perform? Well, that $50,000 would transition to 67, about 143,000. So 50,000 became 143. So Roth, 50,000 became 143. For traditional, the 222,000 became 636,000. So if we were to just look at these vehicles together, let me draw my line here. That 636,000 plus that 143,000 transitions into about $779,000 total over that 10-year period. Which is better? 779 compared to 525,000 based off a 10% on average rate of return, knowing that that's highly unlikely. But given Vanguard and the traditional retirement, I'll call it structure, the benefit of the doubt. This is the performance of the most recent 10 years. This is the index performance of the highest 10 years. And this is the index performance of the lowest 10 years. The lowest 10-year performance in total, if you would average that dollar amount or that interest rate, is about 8.7%. Just looking at the lowest 10-year performance in this particular product. If we're looking at the highest 10-year performance, we're talking 16.55%. If we're looking at the performance of the most recent 10 years, we're talking about somewhere between 8.7% and 16.55% is what you can expect in a vehicle like this, with no market risk, allowing you to keep the money that you've made. If there's a bonus being added and the growth on your dollars is protected, again, protected against market risk. If this is your car, it's not about the vehicle itself. It's about where the vehicle is sitting. It's how it's being protected. What we're talking about today is what it looks like to take your dollars out of the vehicle that they're in and put them in a position so that your money can work for you. And we're specifically talking about qualified money. So by strategically repositioning where your money is currently located, you can have both the growth of what most qualified accounts offer, as well as the 0% floor that allows you to make sure you're not losing the money that you contributed in it, and it's able to grow the maximum amount possible if needed. Again, there are thousands of annuities out there. The question is, which one should you get? And that's where you need, if you're spending time focusing on what that vehicle looks like, it's about how it's structured, where you're getting it from, and what those details are. We'll dig into some of that as well. What even is an annuity? An annuity is just simply a tax-deferred vehicle provided by life insurance companies. And what life insurance companies love about annuities is Not only does it provide the guaranteed income, in some cases, security and growth, from a life insurance company's perspective, they get to lock in on the dollars that you've provided, and they have more control over making sure they're able to maximize its growth. And obviously, they take a percentage of that, and you get a percentage. But the bottom line is there's no volatility in whether or not you're contributing this month, whether or not the dollar amount will be there. There's this annuitization period. There's this period of time where this dollar amount is locked in. It can be 5 years. It could be 7 years. It could be 10 years. It could be 15 years. But the bottom line is there's this annuitization period. So there's a few different phases. Annuities typically have an accumulation phase. That's where you're contributing dollars into it. And that dollar amount is, in most cases, is a lump sum, and it's focused on growth. And that growth and accumulation value. And then that annuitization phase is that time period where the life insurance company is using those dollars to maximize its growth. And then after that annuitization phase, after you've gotten through that surrender period, it's about distribution. So ultimately, annuities function in three spaces. But there are thousands of annuities, but I would say you can group those thousands of annuities into three buckets. It's either focused on growth, it's focused on immediate income, or it's some, I'll call it, version of both. These are the ultimate buckets that we focus our attention on, or that I focus my attention on when you come to me and say, hey, this is the goal. Because depending upon your goal, I can fit an annuity for any spectrum of what that need might be. Again, you might be here, somewhere in between. I don't really need it, but I would love to have access to it if I needed it. What you're referencing is, I want access to free withdrawals. During that annuitization phase, while this dollar amount is growing inside of this annuity, I want the option to be able to use some of the money in it to be able to buy a property, to be able to pay off my mortgage, to be able to take a trip. I just want the capability of accessing those dollars if I need it. We can create something like that. Or it's, again, I'm at retirement age. I need growth. I need this money to last for my lifetime, but I also need to take some form of a distribution early. So again, I don't care what the scenario is, 9 times out of 10, that scenario fits into one of these three categories.
The other question that a lot of people probably maybe aren't aware of is, where do annuities come into the conversation usually? Like at what stage, or what is the move that people are wanting to make where this suddenly becomes an option where it's not a part of normal conversations from the beginning? Like your HR department is not talking about annuities. You know, most financial advisors or financial retirement planning, they're not talking about these products. So where does this come into play normally for people?
In most cases, it's those who have some sum and they're not sure what to do with it. They just know that the dollar amount sitting where it is today is not benefiting them, or in the long term may be negatively impacted. So for instance, this gentleman who's 57, he's been contributing to the 401k and the IRA and the Roth IRA for the last 20 plus years. Like he's been very diligent about contributing to these products. What he's realizing is, with the volatility in the market, he is spending a whole lot of mental anguish around making sure these products are sitting in the right mutual fund, stock, and bond. And what he's realized, and his words was from watching this channel, what he's realized is he has very little control. All he's doing is playing a shell game. He's just robbing Peter to pay Paul. But ultimately, because the dollars are still sitting in the market, there's no security around making sure he can't lose what he has. And so what he's looking for, the conversation started with, set it and forget it.
Right. Yeah.
But the conversation quickly transitioned to, well, let's focus on set it and protect it. Because again, this is self-directed retirement accounts, right? The name of our business is self-directed. What does self-directed mean? Self-directed means control. Had he come to me and said, I want more control over my retirement dollars, we've got a solution for that too. And so if you're wanting more control over your retirement dollars, then that allows us to shift the conversation to, how can we place these qualified dollars in a position to where you can go take action? But in this case, he doesn't want to be the one responsible. He wants to be able to put it in a place and then come back in 20 years or whatever that time horizon would be, come back and make sure that the money that he put in position is going to be there and be able to sustain his lifestyle.
Charles E.,
I like Charles E.
Oh, I was confident with that. Yeah, I was confident there. Thanks, Donnell, for sharing this with us. Please, what do we give up for the risk less? What do we give up if we're having less risk? Then what are we giving up? Will that affect the annual yield?
A great question. When we talk about risk, especially risk tied to the market, what we're basically saying is, hey, I'm okay with my money doing this. And hopefully the goal is upward performance. The goal is to be able to generate enough growth so that I'm moving in a positive fashion. What I am referencing is not giving up that growth. It's having some more security around it, meaning instead of only focused on wins and losses, because in most cases, that's what I'll call it traditional retirement planning or investing looks like when using the investment equation is we're looking for home runs, meaning I'm swinging, swinging, swinging. Hopefully I hit that home run to be able to transition those dollars into something a little bit more than what I have. Our goal is to protect the money you have, participate in that growth, but in those moments of downturn, we hold. Meaning the 0% floor is so crucial in a risk-less process because the idea is we're generating and building based off the growth, but in times of downturn, in time of market failures, we hold. And then when the market takes off again, we take off. And then when the market crashes, we hold. We hold at that point to where the market takes off again. And ultimately, what that does is it allows you to build uninterrupted, secure compound interest versus what wins and losses provide you. Wins and losses create linear growth, meaning if you average strong performance with lower performance, what you get is some type of straight line moving hopefully in an upward direction. But if you're able to eliminate the losses, what you're able to create and or generate is actually exponential growth. You're able to actually create performance that moves in an upward direction and without the with the elimination of what loss looks like. So, and will that affect the yield? So it is true that consistent performance as it relates to indexed growth, or meaning focused on not losing, you're giving up some of that. Those percentage points are related to the maximum growth. And here's what I mean. If we were talking about risk-based performance of, let's say, the stock market with uncapped growth. What that means is if the market does 36%, we are able to participate in that 36% growth. But if we're looking for protection, meaning I want to be able to participate in the growth of the market, but I don't want that potential loss, because if I'm participating in that 36% growth, I'm also going to participate in that negative 36% performance if the market crashes. So I may give up some of that 36% growth that I'm wanting for the security of not participating in any of the losses, which means I'm not participating in the full 36%. I may be participating in 10, maybe be participating in 12. But so I'm giving up that additional 20+% for the fact that I cannot lose. I will not lose any of the growth inside of this account. So it is absolutely a trade-off. And that is ultimately for the risk-adverse individual. Majority of the people that I talk to around this same age have 90 to 100% of their qualified dollars tied up in the market. Now, they may tell me it's diversified, meaning it's between mutual funds, stocks, ETFs, but it's still tied up in the same place. And what if both the qualified dollars and your non-qualified dollars could be placed in a position to where you could actually get the maximum growth out of them and be protected? Meaning we've been talking heavily today about qualified dollars and how to put them in a position to where they can generate and build income for you. But the real growth opportunity is when we can merge not just qualified money, but how about non-qualified dollars the same? The true, I'll call it utopia, or the epitome of what investing or building and generating growth or wealth looks like, is when you can combine both qualified money and your non-qualified money and put them both in a position to where they can build and generate wealth without the impact of market risk. We're talking about protecting your qualified dollars, moving your IRA 401k dollars into some type of either fixed index annuity or other qualified vehicle that you have more control over and less market risk, and also optimizing non-qualified dollars. This specific example, this 47-year-old with this qualified money, one other aspect that he wanted to make sure was clear to me is he is still contributing $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And then this is $2,000 to $3,000 a month out of his traditional check, meaning his non-qualified dollars are still being contributed into these vehicles. So the question is, if we're moving his qualified money into a position to where it can generate wealth without market risk, what should he do with his non-qualified dollars? How do we place those in a position as well? And the moral of the story is there are secured vehicles for that also. And what it ultimately means is both of those buckets working together. Your qualified money and non-qualified money, your qualified money jumping into an indexed, fixed indexed annuity, and then your non-qualified money, we putting it into a secure compound interest account in the form of a leveraged IUL, a leveraged index universal life insurance policy focused on what? Focused on growth, legacy, tax advantage access, meaning the money you're contributing, the non-qualified dollars, in most cases, you've already paid taxes on. These non-qualified dollars are coming from a liquidated asset, savings, your income. And so because you've already paid taxes on those dollars, when you place them into a vehicle like a leveraged IUL, you're placing them in a tax advantage vehicle. That means the growth on those dollars are growing tax deferred. And as long as when you access those dollars, you access them in the form of leverage, you can also access them tax-free. So it gives you liquidity for emergencies. And also, because this is a life insurance-based product, it comes with other pieces like long-term care protection, like terminal chronic illness riders that are built inside the product. So my point is, the objective is to have all of your money functioning in a strategy, again, a set it and protect it strategy, whether it's an indexed, fixed index annuity or a leveraged IUL. Why? It's all about the goal of protecting and securing your dollars. You're paying yourself today. I'm sorry, you're paying yourself first. You're paying yourself first today, starting right now, in a vehicle that's secure, compounding that money, and then using someone else's leverage dollars to be able to exponentially grow it. So it's putting that money in a position to work for you. And so how do annuities function like this? How do annuities allow you to be able to achieve this goal? Well, it's about principal protection. It's about, again, putting your money in a position to where it cannot be lost. It's about parking that car in the right place so that when you're ready to come back to it, it is fully intact and also hopefully grown and into a vehicle that you can actually leverage and use to be able to live off. And then that growth being linked to the market, but not impacted by market loss. So it's about the 0% floor. And there are many different, I'll call it annuities out there that either have a 0% floor, maybe a negative 1.25% floor, meaning the floor isn't zero. There is some risk there, but it's minimal risk, which also allows you to participate in higher growth of the vehicle as well. Optional income riders, meaning, and this is that spectrum, there's growth, there's hybrid, and there's income. So depending on where you are in that spectrum, we can adjust and fit the annuity to you. And also it maintains its tax deferred status of the account that you've put in it. Meaning if you're putting in tax deferred dollars into an annuity, that tax deferred status remains. So when you take distribution, you're taking distributions from tax deferred dollars, which means you would owe ordinary income. If you're putting in Roth-based dollars, tax-free dollars going into the product, it takes on the shape of, the form of the dollars going in, and it maintains that tax-free status coming out. And as it relates to a leveraged IUL, which we talk about a lot on this channel, how do leveraged IULs work as it relates to non-qualified money? And again, what do I mean when I say non-qualified money? We're talking about savings, income, liquidated asset. It's the tax advantage growth, meaning the dollars you've put in, you've already paid taxes on. The growth inside those vehicles are growing tax deferred. And as long as you use them properly, there's no tax associated with any dollar amount you take from when it's time to receive income from it. And flexible access. This gives you a vehicle that is growing as a savings vehicle. you'll notice that when I talk about index universal life insurance policies, properly structured index universal life insurance policies, I don't reference them as investments. I reference them as savings vehicles. And it's because you're able to grow dollars inside of it and access those funds penalty-free, tax-free to be able to be used for what you want. So it's a savings vehicle versus an investment vehicle implies risk. This vehicle, again, the right properly structured index universal life insurance policy has no risk. And also it has legacy protection and also living benefits. If something were to happen to you, if your demise were to occur, there's a death benefit that pays out. And in addition, there's also living benefits such as terminal chronic illness riders that will allow you to be able to leverage and use the death benefit while you're living to be able to pay bills and use as income. I found this interesting. And that is because we referenced 2022 as it related to market recovery and the true impact of what market recovery looked like. Also in 2022, though, there was a $310 billion increase in annuity purchases due to the negative performance of the market.
The unpredictability.
Right. What this basically says is annuities are essential to growth as it relates to your qualified dollars or even non-qualified dollars for that matter. Why? Because of the protection. So it is essential that you bring annuities into the conversation around how you're growing and generating wealth inside of your portfolio. Why? Because it provides you protection. When the market dips, people react. Why not take the action in anticipation of or before that occurs? Here's your ability to get out in front of what that looks like to be able to get your money protected. And again, going back to the original thought process, if your retirement account was a vehicle that you were storing for the next 20 years, still continuously contributing to it to make sure you're building the maximum growth inside that vehicle, it's not about the vehicle itself. It's about where it's placed. It's about putting it in a position to where it can generate and be prepared to generate that income when you need it. Who is this strategy best for? This says 50 plus, mainly because it's this range, 50 to age 60. It's this range of individuals who are gravely impacted by market downturns, meaning we don't have the time to recover. We have few compound cycles left. So this is the time for us to be able to protect those dollars. But I will say, for those of you 35, 40, maybe you have time to recover, but if you've got a lump sum out there that's sitting in the market not protected, your ability to be able to get those dollars protected would be important. And again, that retirement savings, I'd say $50,000, or I'd say, actually, I've done a few $20,000 is the minimum a lot of insurance companies will take. So that minimum amount being somewhere around 20,000. But if you've got retirement savings sitting around $100 to $200,000 plus, this absolutely is a strategy that would be quite impactful for you. And it's all about that time horizon. What is that time horizon? What is that amount of time you need for this money to be able to compound? And do you need access to it? Do you need access during this 5 to 15-year period? And again, I've seen there are very few 3-year annuitization period annuities, but 5 is common, 10 is common, 15 is common, 20 years even common. But I'd say depending on what that time horizon is for you is who the strategy is best for, and then that risk tolerance. What's the goal? And in this example that we used today, the goal was security, but also he wanted to set it and not have to think about it. So we focused less on setting it and forgetting about it, but let's set it and put it in a position where your money can be protected and ultimately allowed to grow to the maximum amount. If what we've talked through today fits, checks a box for you, the best thing you can do is get on my calendar. Go to selfdirected.info/calendar. Spend some time with me to break down where the opportunities are, what the opportunity might be. Let's take a look at your full portfolio, what you have accessible to you, whether we're talking qualified dollars or even non-qualified dollars, and where's the opportunity to set it and protect it. Not forget about it. Let's put your money in a position to where your money can work for you. And ultimately, What you'll gain from me is, again, I'll share with you my perspective, my opinion, my approach as to how I would approach this. I can't tell you where you should put your money, but I can absolutely identify for you where the opportunities are that can best allow you to achieve the maximum amount of growth. And then ultimately, once we're working together, we're working together. It's you and I from this point forward. So if any of that interests you, the easiest thing to do is, again, sitting here right on the screen, go to selfdirected.info/calendar, jump on my calendar, and be happy to discuss.